welcome. My name is Marguerite Rheinberger. Two words, when said together, really can elicit opinion in people. Law enforcement. How do I personally know? After Valley Access Channels asked me if I would be willing to moderate this show, I did a unscientific opinion. And boy, did I hear, I saw an unscientific survey, and I did hear opinions, although many were qualified. So that was interesting to get their take on that too. Today I have Washington County Sheriff Dan Starry and Stillwater Police Chief Brian Mueller with me to discuss various aspects of law enforcement, not just all the stuff you're hearing in the news. This is a lot of behind the scenes too. Bayport Chief Police, Police Chief Laura Eastman and Oak Park Heights Police Chief Steve Hansen were both invited to participate but were unable to join us, unfortunately. So I'll start with, either one.
We
Your
start with the
background.
sheriff, don't we? Isn't that customary?
Oh my gosh, don't go buttering up this
Here we
early.
go.
Okay, Sheriff Starry, tell us about your background.
You know, I've been with Washington County now for since 1993. And in that time with the Sheriff's Office, I've done just about everything that there is to do. Came up and through the ranks, and I was elected Sheriff in 2018. I actually was appointed in 2017. And just love serving the citizens of Washington County. And, you know, I've done just about everything, like I said, whether it's canine, whether it's SWAT, whether it's DARE officer. I can go on and on. But it's not about me, it's about both of us in law enforcement and doing everything together, right? And so we have a great partnership, Stillwater and the Sheriff's Office, and which is very unique as we go. Brian was my Chief Mueller was my chief deputy, and he's also my chief of police because I live in Stillwater.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to continue on Brian, or may I give him a chance?
Absolutely, you can give him a chance.
Thank you. As you can see, no frightened feel here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Brian Mueller, Chief of Police for the City of Stillwater, and just honored to be sitting here with one of my great friends and my former boss and colleague for many years. Started with the Sheriff's Office in 1998. Most of my time there was spent in the realm of investigations, narcotics, SWAT, that kind of stuff. And then just really honored, Sheriff appointed me as his chief deputy in, I think it was May of 2017. And in that role, I get to work really closely with Dan on all things that the sheriff does, as well as being his main point of contact for the day-to-day operations of the Sheriff's Office. So,
how often, if at all, do you work together? You know, example, Dan, when would you call Brian in? Under what kind of circumstances?
You know, actually, we talk almost every other day, and we go out to eat at least once or twice a week, and so there's a lot of instances that we cooperate, right? I mean, we have the Lift and Loop trail event coming up, and Brian, Chief Mueller, was kind enough to invite the Sheriff's Office down for that. We obviously were in that area. We also patrol the St. Croix River, and it's hand in hand. We do not have enough officers or deputies to cover everything. So our law enforcement partnership really is daily. In the boots on the street, the officers on the street, they do it every day, every hour of the day. And it's really important to back each other up, whether it's a domestic call or anything else that's occurring within the cities. So accidents, right? 36, we certainly know about that. And so if there's an accident, we're both responding because it's an emergency. So.
Police Chief Mueller, how did you expect when you left that you would be in that kind of contact? I suppose as deputy chief, you had to been aware of how often your was it Gannon? Police
Ganaway.
Chief? Yeah, Ganaway. Yeah.
yeah, well, and I think what we're doing now is capitalizing on our relationship, which is unlike any other probably sheriff and police chief relationship in the state. I mean, having worked as his chief deputy and now being, the police chief in the city, that's the county hub. Where his office is, and then also being him living in the city. So there is probably not another relationship like that. So I'm taking advantage of it to help our city and utilize the resources that the Sheriff's Office has for our citizens on as much of a daily basis as we can.
Obviously, years ago, as a citizen slash resident, lifetime resident of Stillwater, things were easy. You know, you were either like the police or you didn't really, you feared them. I mean, and it was like, that was it. But now it's like people are just openly strong on their opinions. And have you both had people, I'm sure you have, come up to you and said, I mean, both good and bad?
Absolutely. But what I will say, what a great opportunity to discuss what the sheriff's office does, right, on a daily basis, to make sure that they know that we're out there to assist them, to help them, to break down some of those negative thoughts that are out there. We are so fortunate to live in Washington County in the area that we live, because truly, when you're out there, you get the thanks. When we're out here at our booth, you get the thanks. And it's just not them coming up to the sheriff. They're coming up to the deputies or the correctional officers or the dispatchers that are out here. And we are fortunate with that. Now, with that being said, we certainly know that there's others that may not have that view of law enforcement. And that's our opportunity to make sure that we're out there in our community being engaged, and then making sure that they know where we're coming from, and we can have that dialogue with them and maybe why they think that way.
Give me an example of something they've said where you've, I don't want to call it turned it around, but given them a different perspective on it.
Yeah, I think that occurs daily. You know, as a young deputy, right? I mean, you would stop someone for speeding, and we would have the negative. No one likes to be stopped, right? I mean, even back in 1993 when I started, and you would give them a citation, and they weren't happy about receiving a citation, and you knew how to say, hey, this is why, that you are truly speeding. It's a hazard. If there was a young kid going across or a ball rolling across the street and you hit them, you're going to be in a lot worse trouble than just having a ticket. Please slow down. For your community, for that residential area, please slow down. We've done this our whole career, is making sure that we have those conversations. And we may not see eye to eye, and we may still have that disagreement at the end where we don't see eye to eye, but at least we can talk with each other and have that dialogue, in an open dialogue at that.
When I go up to Seattle and Portland, I always like to make a point to visit both sides, which they don't do themselves. So it's really interesting to see that. I always think when you wake up, are you fearful? I mean, for your staff, for yourself, just in this job, in this environment?
I think I'm definitely fearful for my staff, but that is my whole career.
Oh,
It has been.
okay.
This is a dangerous profession. I'm not any more fearful than I am now
Okay.
than I was back in 2000, supervising officers at that time, and so it's just a dangerous job. I think what I would also be fearful now in this environment is that the officers know how many people respect them and want them and love them in the community, and that is where I know the sheriff and I have talked and kind of bounce things off each other, that a lot of what we do is being a cheerleader now. And I'll tell my officers, if you're having a bad day, go walk Main Street, up and down Main Street, and you will leave there realizing how many people in the community want you around and love that you're here and respect you. And so that is the only thing that I'm fearful now, is that we continue to recruit and get the high caliber of people in the job.
I want to talk about that. When I was like in Seattle and Portland, they'd say, "Oh, wow, we want to get into a little smaller city. You know, we can't wait to get out of here." Are you seeing that where they're contacting you, both of you, contacting you to try to get into your your area, and sheriff and police are not? I mean,
I would say,
bigger
yeah,
city.
our Washington County is, I mean, it's an amazing place. We hold our officers, and I can obviously, speaking for both agencies and then the rest of the agencies in Washington County, that the leaders in Washington County are highly respected, and they demand a lot of their officers, and they hold them accountable. And you asked the sheriff, you know, what is something where you've turned someone's mind around? And that is, one thing is that that we tolerate bad police officers. And I would tell you that any good law enforcement leader wants the bad police officers out of the profession faster than anyone else. And so I can tell you in Washington County, there's great leaders. And so, we hope to people are contacting us from larger cities,
Right.
from other communities, from outstate, saying, how do we get in there?
Right.
And we just don't, unfortunately, have enough spots to fill.
Interesting.
Yeah, we have been very fortunate. We certainly have heard, other agencies that are having issues finding those qualified candidates that want to work for that agency. Out here, we have not heard that from the police chiefs yet, and so we're fortunate, and we are finding really high quality candidates, whether they're just coming out of school or whether they are transferring, from outstate. We just had one from Waseca that started. We had a couple years ago from Colorado, one from Iowa. So I mean, we are seeing that high quality candidate coming through, and that's the hardest part because sometimes we don't have enough spots to hire them.
I was going to ask you retention.
Yes.
Okay, they're staying. I mean, this is not an easy job, even if it's a fears, of what could happen.
I think we are losing some. Some people have just chosen to find other professions, and that's great. There's honor in change. What is that? The stat now is that most kids coming out of school are going to have 5 different careers,
Right.
Not just different jobs, but actually different careers. So we're no different. There's some people that try the job and early on say this isn't for me, or after several years they're talented in another field and they say I'm going to go do something different. And I would just tell that individual that there's honor in leaving if your heart isn't in it, and if you don't love coming to work every single day, like I know the both of us do over the many years we've been doing this, then find something different. Life is too short to do anything in life that you don't absolutely love.
Right. That's pretty neat that you like coming every
Yeah.
day. That's why. What is it?
Your National Night Out the other day, I was talking to 2 little girls, and the little girl says, I want to be a police officer. Well,
Oh, my
firefighter.
gosh.
Well, a nurse.
Okay.
All she wanted to do
that's
she wanted
cute.
to help people. And she just kept bubbling up with all these professions where you could help people. And that's why, on a day-to-day basis, we get to see our men and women do really good things, and we get to help the community, sometimes in their worst, but sometimes just doing small things, unlocking their car or something like that. So it's a super rewarding job if you can filter out the noise and focus on the positive.
And that's hard. Very hard nowadays, especially with social media going.
Especially with especially with the media,
Yeah.
right? Social media, and it's so easy to be anonymous and throwing stuff out there, right? But I will echo what Brian says. I mean, I can count on a hand how many bad days I've had in my whole career. And it is incredible. I get up and I tell all of the new people, it is an honor to serve. It is an honor to be here and to be able to assist and help people. When you go, out here at the booth or National Night Out, whatever that is, we'll be down at Woodbury Days here in a couple weeks. I mean, you get to help. 10 minutes ago, before we met, we had a medical on a ride, and so we all ran down there to assist that gentleman. And it's still that. I mean, we're still in here to help and to serve, and that's the original reason why we got into it. And I still have that, and I love it, and that's what I wanted out of my deputies as well.
I hope people who don't have that share that they'll know enough to get out.
Yes.
For themselves, for their families, definitely for the people they serve. I mean, you can only hope that, that they're not in there, oh, wow, we got X number of years till the pension kicks in, like that.
I tell that to my kids. I said, find whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't care what profession is. Find something you love, and you'll do it. You'll be successful, and you'll have a great life.
I think people in all professions experience some level of stress under certain circumstances. Yesterday, the New York City Police Department swore in, so cute, 2 emotional support dogs to help their officers under certain circumstances. What methods, if any, do either of you use or that are available, whether they've been used, for staff that have had unusual stress-inducing situations?
What a perfect question, and one that
thank
is
you,
really,
Sheriff.
really relevant as well, right? I mean, so in this day of some of the negativity that is out there, we really have to watch our officers, watch our deputies, and make sure that they're okay, right? Because if they are not okay to go out and help to serve others, they will not. And so over the past few years, with Brian's help as well, we created a program, a peer support program within the sheriff's office. And it's strictly for the sheriff's office, and it's for all staff and their families. And so what we end up doing is making sure that the peers look out for peers. And they're well trained, they have extra training. We also hired a clinical psychologist as well. And so she is there available to meet with, to discuss anything that the employees or their families have to do. We had the traditional employee assistance program that's always been there through the county, but this is an extra step. It's those that are working with law enforcement and get to know the law enforcement and understand some of the issues that they face. With that, we have to do the same for our residents. And with our mental health crisis response unit, and we just created a crisis response team as well within the sheriff's office. I have 2 deputies, and then I have a sergeant. And just 2 weeks ago, we hired our very first in Minnesota, I believe, certified therapy dog. Her name is Rookie. And we just introduced her to the county board on Tuesday.
Okay.
And she was out here
Similar to the New York then.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So there's different. There's emotional, but then there's the therapy dog as well. And this came from born out of an idea that I had, but it was a retired deputy. His daughter works with certified therapy dogs out in Colorado. And we got talking, and we ended up making this happen. And so it's for both employees, but also for the citizens that are out there that are going through those struggles. And it certainly could be for victims as well, right? I mean, we want to make sure that this position and this animal can go out and help, right? I mean, and if that's all it takes is to have a certified therapy dog to come in along with our crisis response unit, which is certified social workers, along with our deputies. I mean, what a great way. And I know we've been talking as well, Brian and I, as to how do we meet that challenge within Stillwater as well. And I'll let him speak to that as we go.
That's nice of him.
Well, it is. I mean, and here's one opportunity where we can capitalize on our previous relationship. So I know what we've done, the sheriff's office together, and those are some of the things we're bringing now to Stillwater. And so we're at the initial stages on a few things, but definitely following suit with what the sheriff's office is doing, and being able to partner with that is just it's a force multiplier for us and for the citizens, as opposed to us trying to do our own thing. We'd rather partner with the sheriff's office in town and do things together to support the citizens, but then also to support our officers. We're doing some of the same things with developing peer support, working with developing a contract with the same therapists, and some different things within our office.
A dog too?
We had definitely talked about a dog, and right now there's just a lot of evaluation. I've only been here 7 months, so we're evaluating a lot of different things, and we utilize a lot of the sheriff's resources for the canines right now, and that allows me being able to call on him at any given moment to utilize those tools, allows me to focus on some of the other development that our agency needs.
I want one of those dogs that knows how to sniff out COVID. You've probably heard that. We could use that right now. I got to tell you, I have just zillions of questions. So if I'm flipping topics, it's simply because this law enforcement opens up a lot of topics. Body cams, just still what are you using?
We do. Okay. Yep, absolutely. Actually, previous Chief Ganaway followed Sheriff Hutton and Chief Deputy Starry at the time when they implemented the body cam program, and Stillwater just kind of came along, used the same platform. Right now, we're doing evaluation of that, and we're a smaller agency, small organization. We don't have the breadth that the sheriff's office has in terms of number of people, etc. So we are looking at the platform and evaluating that right now, but we have used it and will continue to use it.
Obviously, you have it.
We absolutely we have it, and we also have it in our correctional facility as well. So our correctional officers have body-worn cameras as well within there. It's a secure facility, but it's also needed for transparency within our jail system as well. So I'll tell you a quick story, if I may. Back in 1994,
will anyone stop him? No, he's a sheriff.
Right, we're way back, right? So back in 1994, we got our first squad mobile video cameras in our squad cars. And since that day, they have helped tremendously with transparency all the way through to today with body-worn cameras. We still have those in our squad cars, obviously updated, but they continue, and I think the Sheriff's Office has always been that leading edge. We don't want to be way out there, but we want to make sure that they work and it's for the right reasons. And this program, the body-worn camera system, I mean, absolutely, it works. The deputies and our employees embrace it, and they always have. And we don't hear, since 1994, we have not heard anything within inside ours or outside that, that anyone fears that. I think it's really important that we have that.
I guess I never knew that either department had it, and it's kind of interesting because you see it on the media, and they somewhat cherry pick what they want of the body cam, and it's like footage, and it's like, wow, that can be really inflammatory, and that's got to bother you too when it's not seen in its entirety.
Well, and it's quite literally, it's the video. There's so much more going on, so it's not just in its entirety, but it's also everything else that's going on. And so when you look at a decision an officer makes, not talk about anything specific, but any decision an officer makes isn't this view that you might see on TV. It's everything around, the sound, the smell, the other people. There's a lot more going on than just this two-dimensional view that we see.
What is your opinion of defunding the police? And you hear it everywhere. And I'm not sure people even know what that entails or what it should entail. But
yeah, I think that's a true feeling. I think it's an emotional response to some bad things that have happened, and the response is we don't want that type of policing. I can tell you definitely that Sheriff and I don't either. And so I think that initial response that's valid, and I respect that initial thought. However, I caution people as violent crime is rising, as other crimes are rising, that isn't the answer. And so there is a thought where we want to go ahead and reimagine policing and do things differently and demand different and more from our officers. But I don't think eliminating law enforcement is the answer. Definitely defunding is not. In fact, I would go the other way and say to continue on the great path that we're going down, we need to invest more in our law enforcement, our public safety. We need to invest more in training, invest more in equipment, and invest more in numbers of personnel. And then we also have to demand more of our leaders to say what kind of policing is okay in the communities.
what do you think of that, Dan, the defunding?
Well, we've been working a long time together, and so he rubs off on me, and I rub off on him, and it absolutely. This is a demanding job, and there's no doubt, and we do hold accountable our staff, and we should, and the public expects that, and as leaders, that's what we do. With that, defunding the police is not the correct way, and you hit it really very well. That I don't know if a lot of people know what that really means. They're looking for something different, and I'm not sure if they're quite there yet as far as what they expect. But what I will say is that's why we're out in the community. That's why 2 weeks ago, both of us, we were downtown Stillwater walking the beat and talking with people, again, sharing, getting those thank yous and things like that. But it's making sure that we're connected with our communities that we serve. And like that pays dividends. And we don't hear the defunding as much out here as what you do in Minneapolis or a lot of the larger cities. Out here, we really have that engagement opportunity, and we do that, I think, very well with our communities. Whether it's, Cottage Grove all the way up to Forest Lake, we really do a really good job with that.
Well, and if you look at some comments that former Mayor Sharon Sells Belton said in Minneapolis, she said, definitely we want a different type of policing, but she was very adamant on several interviews saying, have a plan. Like, she loves that city and she wants a plan, and it might be different. It might, officers not always responding to persons in crisis calls. It might be some different things, different training. But she said, have a plan. Don't defund without a plan moving forward. And that's where I think we stand, to say we can do things differently, we can do things better, but defunding isn't the answer.
Every profession has people who really shouldn't be in it, and this is you are both in extremely important professions that deal with the public constantly. How do you spot someone? Certainly over your lifetime, you have seen those kind of people. Are you told by maybe residents, their colleagues? Can you yourself, all of the above? I mean, it's got to be hard to jump on it as fast as you can.
I think it's all of the above. I mean, we do. We look at complaints that come in from the citizens, complaints from even the staff coming in, right? And we take a look at that. But we also have a system within the sheriff's office. It's called Guardian Tracking, and that's an early warning system that we can put in those. It may be subtle complaints, right? That may not rise to anything else. You may talk to that person, put them down on the right course, but maybe it's 2 or 3 or 4 over a course of time that there's so much going on, it may fall through the cracks. Okay. This will alert the supervisors as an early warning system to say, watch this, it may be an issue, and you may want to get in front of it before later. Okay. And it has worked out really well for us. We continue to look for that, be vigilant, right? I mean, the chief said earlier, there's no one that wants out bad cops more than good cops.
Right.
And we do hold each other accountable as we go, and we continue, and we must do that as we go. So.
Yeah, I would just add that the law enforcement leaders demanding of their supervisory staff to continually monitor and be involved with that. And so if we demand that our officers aren't just silent bystanders, that they engage and we hold them accountable if they don't, that's a culture that you want in your organization, where someone says, that isn't right, I'm not okay with that, and I'm going to report you for that. And if that's the culture, the good cops that we talk about are going to embrace that and move forward because they know that they are treating this job ethically and morally, and they want everyone else to do the same.
When you guys hire staff, I mean, they know they're buying into a potentially dangerous position as a rule. I can't see how you wouldn't need budget increases, just to get the staff to stay, and especially after they've been well trained. Am I wrong on that? I mean, certainly, we're going to give you a budget cut. I don't think that's going to go over well, but you need that incentive because you're dealing constantly with the danger in front of you.
Yeah, and it's that incentive for, just the pay, and we didn't get in this profession to have weekends, holidays off, and get rich. But there's definitely, a good pay for this, and so that's a piece of it. But also the technology is so expensive, and the training is, and that's where if you start to eliminate budgets, you're going to try to retain staff. And so what is going to get hurt first is new technology. You won't be able to dive into that, and then the training is going to get hurt first, and then you're going to end up laying people off. And so that's what happens when you have budget cuts, is you have lower trained officers and less technology available to support the public's needs.
Stillwater Chief Mueller, how does your department get funded?
Through levy, and then any other grant opportunities that we can find, whether it's state or federal. That's exactly what would fund our police department.
And when you mean levy, so people are going to the polls to vote? I mean, so we get an idea, because levy means for most people school district levies.
Yes. No, you're right. So it's the city taxes that are on, right? And so the city taxes.
Thanks for explaining that. Yes, because it is. How about your department?
So my department is some levy, some grant funding.
Got it.
But it's also levy from some of the cities. We have contract cities, like the city of Hugo or Afton, Lake Elmo. And so those cities actually budget for law enforcement. And so some of that funding comes from that, fees for services.
Do you have to go before the county board in order to get increase for your...
Absolutely, I do. It's matter of fact, I was just... last week I was in front of the county board presenting my budget to them.
And do you have to go before the city council at all?
Generally speaking, yes. And so we're in the preliminary budget stages. So we work within the city. Administrator McCarty manages that whole budget process and the asks, if you will, from all the department heads, and then pushes forward proposed budget, and then that negotiation or that back and forth happens with the city council.
Okay, so money's just one part of it. Therapy, or have it be ability. What concerns you most about your profession, your just the whole environment? Is there anything that or is it everything that worries you? I mean, maybe that's why you came from him. And
I would say nothing about the current environment. The current environment excites me because there's an opportunity for us to I know this is an honorable profession. I love what I do, and I think there's an opportunity now to create that and to move that forward. It's not artificial. It's not, people aren't saying they just love us because there was a terrorist act after 9/11. Everyone, oh, they love. We have an opportunity to educate people on really what we do, and I think why we're needed, and that is going to be a genuine trust-building opportunity for us right now. So this environment excites me. Other things that I would just hit on quickly would be, the mental illness issue in our communities and within our offices, and then for Stillwater specifically, it's turned into a very large tourist destination, which I love, and I feel super fortunate to be the chief of police there, but it does bring another set of challenges, specifically with staffing, etc. So those are some of the things, but this environment, if it scared us, you would get out of the profession right away, just like I would
you'd
tell
hope so almost, yeah, for sure.
You don't want a leader to be scared by this environment.
Right. Anything you want to add?
I would say the opioid epidemic as well, right? I mean, that we continue and we talk about that and what's going on out there and meeting that challenge and making sure that we try to get the help that is needed, whether it's within our jail or for the citizens out on the street. I would much rather see them get the help out on the street than within our jail. But if we need to do it in the jail, we'll do that as well. So mental health, opioids has been an issue, and COVID has not helped by any means, right?
Tell us why.
Well, it's really isolated people, right? I mean, it's not as much outreach, right? I mean, they're typically in their homes and either using or having issues from mental health. They're not going to see the doctors. They're there for quite a while. The doctors and health professionals were not available, and they were trying to figure out as well, right? I mean, through COVID is how can they best assist those that need their help. And so I think it's all of that going into it, and so it's really important to be out here in the community and making sure that our services, I think they're needed more now than what they ever have been.
I agree. Tell me, domestic abuse, did that go up? Now that seeing people are a little out more, did you see that in Stillwater?
I remember that being a big concern because we were really concerned. This is when the sheriff and I were working together, really concerned about school was in a session, so we would lose those mandated reporters.
Yes.
People were cooped up. If I remember correctly, the sheriff can, if he remembers differently, correct me on this. I thought we did not see the increase statistically in domestic abuse, even if we thought it wasn't being reported. We didn't realize. We were really concerned about it, and then the numbers didn't really show that.
We have a great relationship with Tubman, and I know that I sit on.
And explain that for viewers who might not
Tubman
know.
is a family violence network for the most part, right? I mean, they provide services to those that are in relationship type issues, whether and it expands even more than that, but domestic abuse certainly. And so we have a great relationship with them, and so they assist us and we assist them. But with that, I think having those conversations with them now within the metro proper, within St. Paul and Minneapolis, I do believe that those numbers went up. We ran the numbers, the chief and I did, and we did not see that increase within Washington County. That doesn't mean that it wasn't occurring behind the scenes and not being reported, but we didn't see that within the calls coming into us. So
interesting. When you think of the opioid, there's no question, and you're dealing as you came onto a, I'll just call scene. I don't know what else you guys would use a different word. What different protocols, if any, did you have to use during COVID?
Well, it started prior to COVID, where the sheriff and I, fentanyl kind of hit the scene. So the sheriff and I immediately stopped all testing. The deputies were no longer able to test illicit drugs or suspected drugs out in the field because we were unable to create an environment that could protect the officers from potential fentanyl exposure. So that started it, and so that continues on nowadays. We have seen a dramatic increase in opioid use disorder and overdoses across the country. That has been skyrocketing, unfortunately. So with COVID, that is one area, along with the mental health that the sheriff talked about too, that has been increasing.
Any other protocols that you?
It really came down to personal protection equipment, right? I mean, that's really what
which
it
you
came.
always had, but
Which we always had, but it was really making, and we always tested every year on it as well, right? And so the deputies and officers were really up to speed on it. But who ever thought we'd be living through a pandemic? We planned for it, I mean, years and years and years, but who ever thought that we'd be living through it? And I think it's just that living through it and trying to adapt, especially in our jail. And you have a whole housing unit full of individuals, and how do you keep them safe as well? And I think it was a challenge for us. We met it, and we continue to meet it. I think the PPE was a big thing, and there was a shortage of N95s as well during that time, and rubber gloves and etc. because everyone wanted it. Fortunately, we had some backups and things that we had, and but we continue to see that N95s are still in strong demand by the healthcare professionals. So.
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say the
absolutely.
scheduling piece. Obviously, we're at 24/7 operations. And so how do you, where the rest of America work from home and they were in their basements or their makeshift offices, our officers were out and deputies were out responding to calls and didn't have that opportunity. So trying to come up with scheduling, new schedules to try to minimize their exposure to the community was something that we had never seen or never had to do. So
I know. Well, so many different topics. Okay, on the opioid, because I know this is big. It's Pete Orr, but it just finds it big. What's the solution? I mean, are they doing enough? Because this is a big piece of this crime. I mean, this is the reason. I mean, so many things. Murders. Robberies, burglaries. I mean, you can almost trace it back. And this is just such a topic that has come up. But is there any solution you see?
First, and the sheriff and I was able to work. I'll let the sheriff talk about it. I was able to work with the sheriff on some great initiatives within the sheriff's office, and this is a topic that affects my family personally, and it's scary. And I think just the conversation, much like eliminating the stigma for mental health, eliminating the stigma because there is no demographic that is immune to the opioid epidemic, and so there isn't a group or a subset that is abusing these drugs. It's everybody. And it might be someone that was at the doctor's office for a bum knee and got some painkillers and they're addicted. They're an upstanding citizen, they have a job and a family. So for me, it's a discussion and it's a continued education on how much treatment, how positive a thing that treatment is in our society. And so we could throw, which we need to, a lot of money at the enforcement and drug enforcement piece of it. And that still has to happen, but more on a macro scale. Fighting the large-scale drugs coming in the community. But for the users, we need to find them help, and I know the sheriff can add on to that, and we need treatment has to be part of that, and our officers need to have an answer. So if you have an officer at the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and someone says, I need help, our officers they don't have the tools on their belt or in their repertoire to actually help someone who's in crisis then. And that's where we need to get to, and we're working towards that.
And we've been doing that for several years. We started in 2019, and it's really that collaborative between the law enforcement and our private and partners and our healthcare partners. And it's really coming together with a collaborative, and we've been doing really well with that. The county departments, I mean, we have community corrections, we have public health and environment, we have community services, our social workers, we have the sheriff's office, the attorney's office. We are working, but we're not in a silo. We can't be in a silo. We're doing this all together. The simple things that we started, the drug take-back. Since 2013, when we first started our drug take-back, and we have several sites where the citizens can bring in their unused, unwanted, expired prescription medications and drop them off free of charge, and we dispose of them in an environmentally friendly way. Since 2013, we have collected 36 tons of unused, unwanted, expired prescription medications. Something else that we've been doing is naloxone as well. It's a drug that we carry that reverses the effects of the opioid overdose, right? I mean, and so in both departments, I mean, we have used that very effectively And we were one of the first to do that within Washington County, and we're very proud of that. And so, again, it's serving our citizens, helping our citizens, but making that opportunity for our officers to be able to have a choice, something on their tool belt that they can utilize.
For your officers, what is the biggest concerns for Stillwater? I mean, is it the tourists coming in? You are not really.
Yeah, it's the number of people, and it's not a concern. It's just
Yeah.
how do we best serve them. Our officers love it. I mean, you saw on social media, we had Joe Theismann in town just a couple of days ago, and he stopped to talk to our officers and say thank you and what a beautiful city you have. And I'll be walking around Main Street, and I'll have to turn and stop someone and say, where is that accent from? Where are you from? And we'll have conversations. So it's not a concern. We love it. However, it's how do we provide services? How do we protect everyone and keep them safe and keep this community, this large tourism community? You know, it's a 20,000 person community that acts like a 40,000 person community on any given day, and sometimes a 100,000 person community on certain events.
Right.
And so we can't do that by ourselves, and our officers want to provide that care and that service. And so I guess that would be their main concern, is how do we navigate that with our current staffing and provide that service that we think that everyone needs to keep them safe.
What do you think our biggest concerns for Washington County are?
You know, I think going forward, I think it's going to be some of these crimes that are coming in from the cities. If you heard, it was just on the internet yesterday about Woodbury having 14 stolen cars broken into, etc. And I think it's that. I think it's us making sure that we have enough staff to do that and continue to do that, to maintain, to protect, and serve. That's our mission. With that, the mental health is going to be a huge challenge.
Absolutely.
With COVID. We certainly have school
I don't
coming.
even think they've begun to see this.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we have school that's starting, right, in
Right.
September, and it's making sure that we have the services for the county to make sure that we can care for those individuals going forward. I truly think, I mean, that's sort of our world that we live in right now, and we want to make sure that we're out there to help and care for our citizens. So
Is human trafficking big? I know Pete was Pete's department, Pete Orpit, our county attorney's department, was big in this, trying to lock that down.
So Margot, the sheriff's office and the county attorney in Oakdale and Woodbury, we continue to partner with that. COVID did not stop human trafficking. That still continues to this day. And so we are out there, and we want to make sure that those that are doing that are caught and that they are held accountable. We also want to make sure that those victims of sexual assault or human trafficking can get the necessary help so they can get out of it. And that's why we're here as well. So it is still going on, absolutely.
And I can tell you from, we love the Sheriff's Task Force that he's running with this Human Trafficking Task Force, because just within the last couple of weeks, we received a tip of possible human trafficking, and it was kind of some suspicious activity. We're able to make a call to his sergeant and that group, and they come out and they can investigate it and start working at it and work up a case. So this isn't something that is just, Minneapolis and St. Paul.
Right.
This is here in Washington County, and I know why the sheriff started that task force, and it's been a great asset and tool for communities like Stillwater.
It's interesting, though, when I'm out of state, you hear this is a micro of the whole state, Washington County and Stillwater, of course. But you go, I'm from Minnesota. Oh, God, we're sick of hearing about you. And these are New Yorkers, which just drive me nuts. It's like, oh, my gosh. I get emails or blogs all the time on you guys. But it's like they just view like we're out of control everywhere because of what they've seen. And then I remember at one point going to British broadcasting, and then we would start off Minnesota, like the first 3 stories. It's like, are you kidding me? And you must get that as you go out of state and you see colleagues from out of state. They've heard a lot about your state, not necessarily your county, although I must say Washington County has had some very good reports, like I remember in Florida, just waiting to go on a plane and seeing two things that Pete Orpit's office was doing. I was so impressed to see that, to try to prevent crime. But do you get that from your colleagues out of state? Like they think, or maybe they just smart enough to know, look, it's not Stillwater, it's not Washington County.
Well, we joke. I've had recent conversations with the chief of police in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Oh.
And normally someone will call and they know where to put their bill, and we can
Right.
just tell by their accent. You mean
Right.
Stillwater, Oklahoma, right?
Right.
Or they say, I was on Main Street and I want to complain about loud motorcycles, and the chief down there will say, we don't have a Main Street. But less maybe from our colleagues in law enforcement, but I hear it from the citizens downtown Stillwater, and they say, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful city, and look at the support of law enforcement and the collaboration between law enforcement and the community. We had no idea because we've been seeing the news about Minneapolis, St. Paul, and
Right.
they view it as the whole metro area.
Absolutely right.
And it is a different vibe, and it's a different, I don't want to say it's different expectations, but we just know how we operate out here, and we work so collaboratively together that I think we're very fortunate in the environment that we're able to serve.
Do you have anything to add?
He said it really well. It almost sounded like me talking.
Oh my gosh.
I tell you, I will. I mean,
I know. You work closely.
we are, and I can't. I mean, sometimes it sounds Pollyannish, but it really is a great community that we have within Washington County, up and down in the support, whatever that support is, whatever you want to accomplish, you can do. And even out here at the fair, you see the families walking around, and they're interacting with the deputies all the time. And that's what we see. And I think a lot of the negativity that's out on the media has a different effect on people. But when you really get out here and see what we're doing proactively, and the relationship that we have with each other, but with our citizens, it pays dividends, and it has for years, and it'll continue.
Tell me about the staff for both of you. What is the makeup on it? And racial makeup, I'm very curious on. Gender, the makeup of that.
Yeah. So we have 23 sworn officers currently and 5 professional staff. Stillwater is not as diverse as I would like it to be, the makeup of the employees. And we definitely could use more women in our ranks. And we're definitely working towards both of those areas, and that'll be a focus moving forward for me, for sure.
That's good. Dan.
I think it depends. I think it's when we do our statistics. As far as sometimes we're over 50% women, and sometimes we're under 50%. We're very close at 50%. Men and women throughout. We have 267 employees. We have another 100 volunteers on top of that that assist us, especially during the summers.
What do the volunteers do?
So our volunteers are out. They help us in water parks and trails. They help us in the St. Croix River, all of the lakes that we have, right? I mean, they assist us in various capacities.
Yeah.
Community outreach, our reserve unit is out there directing traffic at accidents. Anything that we need them to do, they'll do. And as far as demographics, I think we're pretty much in line with the county residential statistics that are out there. We're pretty close.
I'm fascinated on the volunteers. I didn't realize that the county had many. Do you have volunteers?
Yeah, we have
still?
about 10 reserves that work on a fairly regular basis, and we're trying to increase that because obviously there's the need with ongoing events, Summer Tuesdays. I mean, we have events just literally every weekend, ongoing every day during the week, and so that's an area that we definitely want to increase for sure.
I'm getting low on time, but there's one question I want to know. Something that we didn't address, or some things that we didn't address that you'd like the viewers to know? Anything having to do with your staff, with just the law enforcement generally?
For me, it's 2 things. One, I just to be clear that this relationship I think is super beneficial for our citizens and isn't the norm. A lot of law enforcement leaders get along, but to have this type of relationship, all of our chiefs within the county get along well, and we can rely on each other for a lot of things, but having this relationship and our past and this friendship is unique, I think, in our profession, and that just generally will be a direct benefit to our citizens.
Agree
and
with
that's
that.
what we hope. That's number one. Number two is that, for me, new in my position, it's been 7 months, I think, something like that, 7 months, is that, I want to be out there. I want to do these things, and these conversations are beneficial. Hopefully people see this, but, for us, I'm open to, any kind of communication, discussion, small group, large group, with anyone within the community that wants to discuss. And you've brought up the environment a couple of times, and I see the only way out of that is to continue to have discussions and to talk, and maybe not hide behind some of the hard questions,
exactly.
and to continue to do this. And so I would just open that up, and that's just something I want to make sure I do on a daily basis. This is my second speaking engagement today, and I have a third right after
Good for
this.
you.
And they're all just to get out and get the word out and to talk about what we're doing at Stillwater and to build those relationships. So there isn't an environment anymore. It's just what we do on a daily basis.
It is. It's easy to go into hiding when you know what could be asked. I mean, why not?
Absolutely.
But good for you doing it.
Yeah, and I just go off of that. I think the sheriff's office has always prided itself on being out in the community and being engaged with the community. And when times are tough, that's when our citizens need us the most. And that's what we do, and that's what we really strive. It's really hard to probably sit in a squad car and drive down the road and put up your windows, right? I mean, that's the easy part. The hard part is to roll down those windows, see someone, stop, get out of your car, and have a talk. And it can, like you said, it can range from any topic.
Right.
But that's what we pride ourselves on, and we continue to do that throughout Washington County. Our volunteers, we couldn't do our job without our volunteers.
They're trained.
So
of course,
if
right?
we have our dive team, they're mainly all volunteers.
Trained?
So, what's that?
They're trained, right?
They are trained,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have, the Explorers, which is a great learning tool for those that, younger adults, younger children that want to see what law enforcement is all about. It's age 14 to age 20. And so we have that Explorer post, and so they get to learn about law enforcement and see if it's a career that they want to venture into. The reserves, like I talked about, they're always out there. They're doing stuff. I mean, tremendous stuff. Mounted patrol. You saw that at the
Yes.
parade last night. I mean, they're out there making sure those are all volunteers. Their horses, that's their animals, right? I mean, so there's a lot of pride that they take, and we are so thrilled to have them. And one other thing, I just want to say thank you to our staff, our employees, because we wouldn't be up here without the dedicated and caring staff that go out and do the job every day. And I'm so thankful for them. I am so proud of our agency and Stillwater's agency as we go. I'm thrilled as we go into the future. We have a bright future, and we'll continue that.
I was going to ask you about the future.
Absolutely.
Brian, first of all, did you ever envision yourself being a police chief?
No. And I told the sheriff, I said, this isn't, I wasn't putting my name in. I wasn't applying anywhere else. My wife works in Stillwater and volunteers in Stillwater, and our kids go to Stillwater schools, and we lived in the valley, different areas for the last 25 plus years. And so the opportunity came, and it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And it was an opportunity and a challenge that after a lot of discussion with my wife, decided to kind of throw my name in the hat and give it a shot.
Good for you. We'll go 10 years out.
Yeah.
What are maybe two things you hope happen for the law enforcement, either for a city level, county level, just law enforcement in general? Just curious to see what you envision and what your hopes are.
Yeah, for Stillwater, I think specifically, the culture of the agency is going to be one of out on foot, interacting on a daily basis. And so Stillwater, I liken to, it's a mini Times Square, a mini Nashville, a mini Las Vegas, and that comes a different kind of policing. And so now I can't just necessarily call the Cottage Grove or Stillwater police chief for certain questions. I have to call out state, because there's no other area like Stillwater within the state. And so I'm talking to other police chiefs about how they handle these areas that are bringing in large numbers of tourism. And so I hope within 10 years we've wrapped our hands around what type of staffing that needs and what type of culture it is to police that type of area. And then I really hope that as a profession, and Stillwater specifically, we wrap our hands around how to respond to persons in crisis and the mental illness. I think that is how we've had some negative consequences from we're not trained, we're not highly trained in that area, we're not the professionals in that area, but we're the answer to the 911 call when somebody is in crisis and one of their family members or loved ones needs help. And we need community services and nonprofit organizations to help fill that void and to step up and not just point to law enforcement and say, you need to answer that call.
Thanks to Chief Mueller, you're left with less than a minute, so make it really good.
Wow. What I would say is mental health is going to be a challenge as we go, and hopefully in 10 years that we can have that collaborative effort that sees really the effects as we go of what we're doing now and the benefits of that. And but it's also for our employees as well, making sure that their wellness is taken care of and that we have really cared for our employees going into the future so they can live long-lasting life as well and their families.
I like how you both have plans. Thank you, Sheriff Starry and Police Chief Mueller, very much, and thank you for joining us.